I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senator Lindsey Graham excoriated Russian President Vladimir Putin during a Senate Appropriations Subcommittee hearing on Wednesday. The South Carolina senator believes Ukraine is just Putin's, quote, warm-up act. Graham claimed to Secretary of State Antony Blinken that the majority of Republicans understand that Putin's invasion is illegitimate and other countries are at risk if Putin is not stopped in Ukraine. Here's more from Senator Graham.
No, I won't request a second round. We'll try to make this as quick as possible, but there's a lot going on in the world, and let's start here at home. Ms. Secretary, do you believe if we repeal Title 42 authority to deport illegal immigrants because of a threat of a COVID outbreak, that we will have more illegal immigrants coming?
Senator, two things on that. First, as you know, Title 42 is a CDC authority, public health authority.
Right.
It's not an immigration policy
that's right.
authority. The question is, what practical effect would its repeal have? I think we are likely to see more people seeking to enter the country, but if they cannot present a credible claim of asylum, they'll be returned. That's the policy. That doesn't change. The border's not opening with the repeal of Title 42 if that's what happens.
I'm just saying the border is completely broken. We have 1.2 million illegal crossings since October of last year, and there'll be a tsunami more coming if we repeal Title 42. And will there be COVID money in the supplemental?
I can't speak to that at this point because I think the White House is still looking at that. One way or another, Senator, in my judgment, we need COVID money internationally, whether that's in this supplemental or in some other vehicle. I don't know, but we need it.
Yeah, I think we do need money for COVID internationally. I agree with that. And I think if you want to stop, as Senator Leahy said, one country away from an outbreak, you would revisit Title 42. I would encourage you to do that. Let's go to Afghanistan. What's the state of play in Afghanistan for women right now?
The state of play is extremely mixed to negative.
What's the upside for women?
The only upside that we've seen at all is that, somewhat ironically, you might say there is in the country at large greater stability and relative peace than there's been. That's about the only upside I can think of. The downside, of course, is that we've seen, including most recently, the Taliban fall back on its commitment that it had made to ensure that girls can go to school above the sixth grade. Well, this is, among many things, something that is a deep concern.
Is our homeland more at risk now than it was before the withdrawal in Afghanistan from al-Qaeda and ISIS presence in Afghanistan?
If you look at the presence and the threat, I'd say there are three things that are going on. First, there is al-Qaeda itself, and I can go into more detail in a setting, but
it's just a general question. Is al-Qaeda and ISIS more free to roam now that we're out of Afghanistan than they were before we were left?
ISIS-K is, as you know, is of course an enemy of the Taliban, and the issue there is not the will of the Taliban to take them on; it's their capacity. That is an issue. When it comes to al-Qaeda and the Arab al-Qaeda core, there are a very, very small number of people in Afghanistan.
How do we know?
Based on the again, without going into detail in this setting, I think
Ms. Secretary, with all due respect, if you're a Shiite in Afghanistan, it had been a good week for you. There is no upside to the Taliban charge for a woman anywhere in Afghanistan, and I think our homeland is far more at risk now that we have no presence on the ground, no ability to detect what al-Qaeda and ISIS-K are up to. So, to me, that's an easy question to ask. President Biden said he had no regrets about leaving Afghanistan. Do you have any regrets?
I don't, Senator, in the sense that this was America's longest war.
No, that's fair enough. Is the war over? Have we ended the war between us and radical Islam by leaving Afghanistan?
We went to Afghanistan, as you know well, for one reason, which is to deal with the folks who attacked us on 9/11. We decimated al-Qaeda and its ability to continue attacks beyond Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden was brought to justice more than a decade ago. It was time to end the longest war.
Have you heard the assessment by the Secretary of Defense and others that how long would it be before an attack against America originating from Afghanistan would mature? And they said 2 years. Is that a successful withdrawal?
Again,
That's what they said. I asked them.
and I don't want to myself put words in their mouths, but the question
anyway,
was how
I just
quickly
think
could
it's
the threat potentially
Yeah,
reconstitute?
well, it's just ridiculous to say that we're safer by letting the Taliban take over Afghanistan and that women have any upside. Let's go to the Ukraine. Are you pursuing Russia being a state sponsor of terrorism?
We're looking at that. And the question is,
What's hard about that?
the question is this, and this is something that the lawyers are looking at. There's no doubt in my mind, Senator, that the Russians are terrorizing the Ukrainian people.
Well, what about Syria?
The question is this, and again, this is something that that lawyers are looking at to make sure that we actually meet the statutory requirements of that designation. And
Well, if you need to change the law so that Russia fits in, you'll have 100 votes. I don't know what more you'd have to do as a country to be a state sponsor of terrorism. They've decimated the Ukraine, and they're all over Syria, dropping barrel bombs on people. So you mentioned that you're looking at it. I would encourage you to look at it and act upon it. Putin vowed today in the Duma that he would stay committed, even though there have been heavy losses, to accomplishing the goal of the invasion. What would you like to say to him?
very simply, end this aggression, end it now.
Well, it seems not to be working. What are the consequences to him if he keeps this up?
I think we've already seen devastating consequences for Russia. And let me say this. First, in terms of his actual objectives, as stated in his own words, he has already failed because those objectives were to eliminate Ukraine as an independent and sovereign country, to subsume it back in some fashion into Russia. We know already, as a result of the extraordinary courage of the Ukrainians, that that's not going to happen. And as I've said, there is going to be an independent and sovereign Ukraine around a lot longer than Vladimir Putin will be on the scene. So it's already a strategic
From
failure.
your lips to God's ears, and I want to help you where I can in that endeavor. When it comes to winning in Ukraine, describe very briefly what winning looks like for Ukraine and the United States.
Winning is going to be defined by the Ukrainians, and we will support whatever they decide is in their interest.
Have they told you what winning looks like?
Right now for them, and I don't want to put words in their mouths, but I think their focus is, of course, on repelling the Russian aggression and getting the
You
Russians
said
out
to
of their country.
Senator Moran that our goal was to get Russia out of Ukraine. Is that our goal?
That is Ukraine's goal, and as a result, that's our goal as well.
Okay, great. If Russia uses banned chemical weapons in Ukraine, what will our response be?
The President has been clear that there would be severe consequences for any use of a weapon of mass destruction by Russia. We have been working not only within our government, but with allies and partners across
Can we put a parameter on what severe consequences would look like?
I'm not going to telegraph in public what we can do. I can tell you that a lot of work has gone into planning against every possible scenario. And again, in a different setting, I'm happy to get into that.
We'll take that up. If Russia explodes a tactical nuclear device in Ukraine, would you consider that an attack on NATO? Because the radiation would go well beyond Ukraine.
All of this, including the potential use of a nuclear device, a tactical nuclear device, is part of the planning we're doing. And again, we can get into that in more detail.
Well,
in
just a
setting.
couple more minutes. Do you think our policy regarding Russia and Ukraine has been successful?
To date, in my judgment, yes, in the sense that we said this, Senator, before, when we saw the likelihood of a Russian aggression many months ago.
So you think this is successful?
I would say two things. First, when we saw this as a possibility, we did two things, and we did both of them at the same time. We worked to see if we could head it off through diplomacy and
that
dialogue,
didn't work.
And that did not work.
Right.
But we also said at the same time that we would make sure that we and the Ukrainians and the world were prepared if Russia went through with its aggression. And we have been. Ukraine has done an extraordinary job in pushing the Russians back from Kyiv. The world has come together to support the Ukrainians as a result of American leadership and American engagement. world has come together to impose massive consequences on Russia
Why
for
did
its
he-
aggression, again, as a result
Okay, well,
of
with
our
all due
leadership and
respect,
engagement. So I think in terms of what we set out to do,
Yeah.
so far, this has been successful, but it has to be sustained.
I just take issue with the fact that we've been successful in Ukraine. One, they invaded. We told them not to. They did. They're killing people right and left, and you know, we're slow getting weapons in. I hope it turns out well. But do you think our withdrawal from Afghanistan affected Putin's decision to invade at all?
I do not. Senator, I think he looks at these things on their own terms.
Why did he pick this year?
Well, when he went into Georgia in 2008, we had more than 150,000 troops between Afghanistan and Iraq.
Yeah.
That did not deter him. When he went into Ukraine in 2014,
But he hasn't
the first time,
dismembered the state of Georgia. He's occupied, you know, there's two provinces there. But why did he choose to invade Ukraine this year, you believe?
I think a number of factors came into play. I think he saw Ukraine moving inexorably to the West, to Europe, and he saw nothing that was going to interrupt that process. It was democratizing, it was strengthening its system, and having a successful democracy on Russia's borders was bad for Putin. And he had the ambition that he said in his own words
Last year.
Ending its sovereignty and independence. And this was
He doesn't recognize Ukraine as a separate nation.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's not really about them being democratic. They've been moving toward democracy for a long time. I think he invaded this year because because he thinks he can get away with it. So very quickly, 1 minute here. China just got back from the region. The people in Taiwan are very concerned about what happens in Ukraine. Do you agree that the outcome in Ukraine can influence what China does regarding Taiwan?
I do. I think China's looking at this very carefully. And the fact that it has seen, as a result of our leadership, 40 countries and more come together in a variety of ways to impose these massive costs on Russia for its aggression, that would have to factor into its calculus about Taiwan going forward.
Are you, as administration, committed to following Putin to the ends of the earth and supporting war crimes, investigations, and prosecution against him individually? Do you believe that we could ever forgive and forget when it comes to Putin? Do you believe it's the right policy for the international community to pursue him as a war criminal in perpetuity?
Senator, we're committed to doing everything we possibly can for as long as it takes to ensure that there's accountability for the crimes that have been committed.
That includes Putin himself.
Whoever committed the crimes, whoever ordered the crimes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.